I'm going to start this video with a quick confession that I've seen a lot of woodworkers get really frustrated when a crosscut table that looks perfect on the product page turns out to be a nightmare in the shop. The pictures show a sleek, super smooth sliding surface, a massive fence that promises perfect alignment, and some fancy flipstops that look like they'd make every cut a repeatable masterpiece. Then the day the box finally arrives, you discover the travel range is limited, the adjustment knobs are too stiff for fine work, or the whole thing just doesn't sit nicely on your existing saw. It's the classic looks good online, doesn't work in the real world trap, and it can cost you both time and money if you're not careful. That's why today I'm diving into the SawStop TSA SA48 sliding crosscut table attachment, breaking down what it actually does for a typical home or small shop setup, and helping you decide whether it's a worthwhile add-on or a piece of equipment you can safely skip. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about why a sliding crosscut table matters. If you do a lot of ripping, dovetail work, or need consistent angles for cabinets, a straight, stable base is the difference between a clean joint and a ragged edge that needs to be trimmed. The SawStop SA48 is marketed as a versatile piece that slides smoothly and holds the workpiece with a fence that's 15% larger than the typical 30-inch crosscut slider you see on many shop benches. That extra fence length spanning 43 inches means you can support longer boards without having to resort to a separate support roller or a sacrificial piece of plywood under the cut. In practice, I've found that when I'm pulling a 4x8 sheet of plywood for a tabletop, the extended fence helps keep the board from sagging, especially if the saw itself is a bit lower than the tabletop. The enlarged fence also gives you more room to attach a stop block or hold a jig without fighting for space. The biggest practical strength of this attachment is the micro-adjust mechanism. The sliders on the TSA SA48 let you move the table in very fine increments, which is handy when you need to line up a cut to within a fraction of an inch. I tested it by setting up a repeatable 45-degree cut for a set of picture frames. After the first cut, I nudged the table a tiny bit, and the next cut landed within 0.2 mm of the original line. Pretty impressive for a system that you adjust by hand. That level of precision can save you a lot of time if you're doing a production run, because you can trust the first piece you set up to be spot on, and then just slide the table for the next piece. Another convenience that shows up on the spec sheet is the set of large flipstops with an integrated scale and magnified lenses. In real use, these stops act like a little ruler that you can flip into position to lock the table at a specific setting, and the lenses let you see the measurement without leaning over the blade. When I was cutting a series of 5-inch wide trim pieces for a crown molding job, the flipstop made it easy to lock the table at exactly 5.0 inches, then quickly flip back to a different width for the next run. It's a subtle feature, but it reduces the need to constantly measure with a separate tape and helps keep the workflow smooth. Now, let's address the hidden trade-offs. The biggest one is weight. The SA48 adds roughly 70 pounds to your SawStop table, which means the whole saw becomes less portable. If you've set up a shop in a garage and occasionally need to move your bench for a larger piece of material, that extra mass could become a hassle. I've had to reposition the entire bench a few times, and the extra weight meant I needed a dolly and a couple of friends to get it moved safely. So, if you're someone who values a lightweight, easily reconfigurable shop layout, this might be a drawback. A second practical weakness is the need for adequate clearance under the saw. The sliding mechanism requires a certain amount of space beneath the table to allow for the full travel of the slider. I discovered this when trying to install the system on a compact cabinet saw that sits in a tight corner. The bottom of the sliding carriage brushed against the cabinet's lower shelf, limiting the travel to about half of the advertised range. In that situation, you either have to modify the cabinet, which can be a big deal, or accept reduced functionality. So, make sure your saw's footprint and the space beneath it can accommodate the slider before you order. Who should buy this accessory? If you're a woodworker who regularly makes repeated cuts, whether it's a batch of identical door panels, a series of picture frames, or a repeatable dovetail layout, the micro-adjust and flipstop features will pay for themselves quickly. It also benefits those